Condi Rice.
Oh. I will give you the floor, and then I will try to clean up the collateral damage from this.
Come close. I'll whisper to you.
No.
This isn't very tough. This isn't very tough. Nobody should have a seat on a playoff committee unless they have dedicated a portion of their life, their career, to college football, either directly in the form of participation or the administration thereof, or in the analysis of college football. If this has nothing to do with race, it has nothing to do with gender, you can stack that committee full of women. I don't think either Pete or I would care. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with one thing and one thing only: experience. Condi Rice is not experienced enough to be able to sit on that position. We're not talking about a board that's going to, determine ethical issues or determine how best to promote the sport or how best to do anything like that. We're talking about a committee of people that's supposed to be able to determine the relative worth of 125 different rosters across the entire country, all with their own different geographical weights and historical weights, and there's no way Condi Rice is in a position to be able to do that right now. And it is a crime that this has happened. And by the way, it happened for one reason, Pete: money. You know why? Because there's a lot of very powerful stakeholders in this process that never wanted a playoff in the first place, that were drugged into this playoff thing. Guys like Jim Delaney of the Big 12, who actually came out and said in front of Congress that he recognized that the playoff would make more money for all the stakeholders, but that it would create less separation, less divide between the Big Ten and the other conferences. So I'm not done. So he wanted that to not happen. He wanted less money so that he could keep a greater advantage. Those guys aren't dead. They're still around, and they're doing everything they can to marginalize this playoff process and slow down its development. And that's why we're seeing ridiculous things like Condoleezza Rice being nominated to sit on a playoff committee that's supposed to evaluate the relative worth of football teams.
My biggest problem isn't necessarily Condi Rice. It is Condi Rice Stanford fan.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but go ahead.
It's my issue with this is the idea of not just Condi. It's Barry Alvarez of Wisconsin. It's the idea of that everybody has to be, quote, represented. Because what the problem then it becomes, what happens if it comes down between Stanford and, let's say, a second SEC team for that number 4 spot?
Doesn't she just recuse herself?
I don't think you do that. Then why be a part of this? You can't recuse. You've got to be able to vote. And the whole point of this is, you've got to be above reproach. You've got to be above this question. And it's, again, if Barry Alvarez votes for a Big Ten team over an SEC team, you're going to have screaming and yelling. And if he doesn't do that, you'll get the flip side and say, hey, look, you're just trying to do it. It creates, the system itself creates a problem. And the difference being that everyone kind of goes, well, you've got these different factions for the NCAA Men's Basketball Committee. Yeah, but if you miss out on getting the 8th best ACC team that was on the bubble, it doesn't matter. You miss on the 5th best team. Like right now, just throw out names right now. Let's say there's going to be losses, things are going to happen. But just imagine if you have an SEC champion. You have whoever the Pac-12 champion is. You have, let's say Louisville goes 12-0. Let's say Ohio State goes undefeated. What happens if Oklahoma goes undefeated? What about that second SEC team? What about that second Pac-12 team? There, right now, you could probably throw 6, 7, maybe 10 teams.
A much harder choice.
And so the problem then becomes, how should this have worked? And the best idea I've heard, within the realm of the real, came from Gary Danielson, was like, okay, let's just take this out of the hands of the committee. The committee should vote on which are the 4 best conferences this year and say, let's take the 4 top champions for the 4 champions from those 4 top conferences.
Yeah.
To me, this shouldn't even go to committee. The easiest way to do this would be make an 8-team playoff. The 6 BCS conference teams champions are automatically in, so you can play your way in, and then you have 2 wild cards.
2 at large, right?
Then the committee doesn't matter. And for some reason, and I don't know why, I do know why, because they want the hype and they want to make it a reality show, but they're judging this too much.
Yeah, listen, college football is always going to have controversy. There's always going to be controversy. You don't need to manufacture it, right? And by putting somebody in this position, and again, how Condoleezza Rice allowed herself to get put into a situation where she was going to have nimrods like me and be right, point out the fact that she's grossly underqualified for this position. No matter what she does, no matter what she picks, no matter what happens, there'll be a flip side of that that's going to rip this system apart. And I think there are people that would like to create an environment that rips this system apart. I want to touch upon one last thing. I can't do Condi Rice's job. You don't want me doing Condi Rice's job, all right? Condi Rice can't do my job. You put me in a room with Condi Rice, I would embarrass her on college football.
On that wall. I need him on that wall.
Listen, because at the end of the day, do I think if Condi Rice devoted her life to this, do I think that she could do it better than me? Yes, I do. But you know what? And to be very clear, I'm not qualified for this committee. And I'm a guy who spends all day digging into Kentucky football statistics. And I'm not qualified to sit on this committee. You, Pete, are qualified to sit on this committee.
Here's my standard. I think everyone on this committee right now, out of the blue, almost like it's a horrible analogy for this, but almost like just an out of the blue blind, drug test almost. You give them a sheet with the top 25 teams ranked and say, name me the starting quarterback for all top 25 teams right now. I guarantee you, it's not just right. I guarantee you that nobody on that list can name all top 25 starting quarterbacks. And that's the problem, because it's not about picking, I think. My other problem with this, how this is going to work is it's not about what you believe. It's got to be about what you can prove.
What you can see, right?
It can't be like, I think Ohio State is really good, or I think this thing. No, you have to be able to dive into this, and almost to the point where you have to bow to the computers and strengthen the schedule somewhat and say, okay, look, this is the team that deserves to be it. Like, look, did I think Notre Dame was the best team in the country? Not even close. But if you look at their resume last year and say, okay, look, they won at Oklahoma. They beat USC. They beat something like 9 bowl-bound teams. They earned it on the field by going undefeated against a good schedule. So, yeah, they're in. I don't buy them. I don't think they're as good as a Texas A&M or LSU, but okay, they deserve to be in. And so as long as you take the belief factor out of this as much as possible, and I want transparency, and I don't want it at the very end. Yes. Throughout the season, I want to know, like, at the mid-season, what are you thinking? Like, right now, where are you going with all this stuff?
Okay, Pete, I got to wrap you up, brother. We're running out of clock. We're running out of time.
Yeah, okay. Do what you want.
You ready? Last thoughts, final thoughts. You got 60 seconds. 60 seconds, go.
Missouri is going to be the thing we're talking about next week at this time. I think that all across the college football landscape, the big stories that are going to rise up quickly are going to be Baylor. I think Baylor is going to be that story that's going to start to say, hey, wow, look at them compared side by side with Oregon. Why are we loving Oregon and not giving the same love to Baylor? I think Texas Tech is going to rise up and quickly be a story. They're still undefeated. And I think Missouri, after they beat Georgia this weekend, next week the conversation is going to be, can Missouri actually win the SEC East? If you don't believe in Florida and you think South Carolina is kind of flaky and South Carolina's coming to Columbia, then you look at this schedule and you say, you know what? Maybe Missouri's got a shot, but they got to beat Georgia first.
All right. First of all, it's a damn good thing you have me to help you with the SEC. That's all I got to say. All right, here's my closing thought. You ready? I think Nick Saban would make a good 5-star general. I think that he has the. I think he's an excellent strategist. He's excellent with strategy. He's good at leadership. He leads very well. He's good at motivation and discipline. And personally, it's just my personal opinion, but I think Nick Saban could send men to die. I think that he do that already. I think he has that personal makeup. But that doesn't mean that I'm sending Nick Saban to Afghanistan tomorrow, because Nick Saban is not a 5-star combat general. That's not the direction he chose to go in his life. He chose to become a fantastic college football coach. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying that Nick Saban could not be a 5-star general. I've got news for you. If you're over the age of 40 and you're not getting a paycheck from NASA right now, you're not going to be an astronaut, and I'll get you a tissue. There's nothing wrong with saying that Condoleezza Rice is not fit to serve on a committee that's responsible for judging the relative worth of 125 different college football teams, of which she has no business judging.
Russ, you ready to you want to start dogging the retired general that's going to be on this committee too?
By the way, I said that earlier. I said just wait for Petraeus. Just wait for Petraeus. You know it's going to be Petraeus.
No, I can't remember his name, but I think he's there. There is a retired general who's on this committee, basically representing the Mountain West. So if you want to start dealing with the you don't support the troops by dogging a general being on this committee, I'll let you handle that one.
All right, how are we supposed to close this thing out?
Bye.
Bye.